A lot of Bible prophecy teachers talk about the Antichrist and this one world government where the Antichrist rules the world. But the problem is, you don't really find that in the Bible. Okay, let me clarify. You do if you only read one or maybe two verses and ignore the rest of the Bible. Of course, if you do that, you can make up any doctrine you want. You can say the Bible teaches there is no God. Does the Bible actually say there is no God? Yes, it does. But then you read the whole verse, and what does it say? In Psalms 14:1, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. So sometimes you need to read the whole verse. Oftentimes you need to read the whole passage. And other times you must link it with other passages that teach on the same topic before you make a conclusion. So where are the verses that make people assume the Antichrist rules the world? In Revelation 13:8, all who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Revelation 13:16. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. So those who don't know how to study and interpret the Bible say, see, the Bible says all who dwell on the earth will worship him, and he causes all to receive a mark. So they conclude he rules the whole world, and everyone takes a mark on their right hand or forehead. Now let's read other parts of the Bible that involve the world or earth and see what it says. Luke 2:1. And it came to pass in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. Wow! Caesar Augustus had all the world registered? That's incredible! The Roman Empire had people in China, Japan, India, Africa, North and South America all registered and numbered. No, they didn't. No one teaches that or says that. Why? When the decree went out to register all the world, it meant only the Roman Empire. It's called a hyperbole. What's a hyperbole? It's an exaggerated statement or claim not meant to be taken literally, such as, I've been waiting forever. Has it really been forever? Forever is a long time. Okay, that's a hyperbole. As far as I know, every language uses hyperboles. Now, if people use hyperboles in speech, will God use it? Of course he will. God uses human language to communicate with humans. And I'll show you obvious places he uses them, particularly when describing world empires. Now, I hope I don't sound condescending or mean, but I do hope to get the message across. You must use the Bible to interpret the Bible. Truth is, some people should not be teaching the Bible. Anyways, let's see how God describes world empires in Daniel chapter 4. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, and Daniel interprets it for him. Daniel 4. Starting in verse 20. The tree that you saw, which grew and became strong, whose height reached to the heavens and which could be seen by all the earth, whose leaves were lovely and its fruit abundant, in which was food for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and in whose branches the birds of the heaven had their home. It is you, O king, who have grown and become strong, for your greatness has grown and reaches to the heavens, and your dominion to the end of the earth. Wait, Nebuchadnezzar's dominion had reached to the end of the earth? If you look at a map, the Babylonian Empire was actually quite small, large in his time, but small compared to subsequent kingdoms and even the borders of today. Now, maps are going to have different borders, and some maps make the Babylonian kingdom larger, but not by much. Some maps include the Syrian Empire because the Babylonians conquered the Syrians. Some maps include Egypt, but I don't think the Babylonians ever attacked Egypt. They defeated the Egyptian army at Carchemish, which is in modern-day Turkey, but they never marched on Egypt. However, the Medo-Persian Empire, which defeated the Babylonian Empire, they conquered Egypt. Now, God said Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom was to the end of the earth. I once thought maybe had Nebuchadnezzar kept conquering, he could have kept going. But I don't think that is true, because God is going to say the same thing about the Grecian Empire with Alexander the Great. And Alexander could not push into India. He pretty much had to stop at India. He wanted to go into India, but his troops mutinied because they were exhausted and wanted to go home. You can't conquer without an army, and conquest is not a one-man job. So clearly, when God said to Nebuchadnezzar that his dominion was to the end of the earth, it was clearly a hyperbole. God was simply telling him he was a powerful man with a large kingdom, not to be understood as if he actually ruled the world. In fact, far from it. Now let's continue. Daniel 2, verse 37. You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. The inferior kingdom that would rise after his was the Medo-Persian Empire. The reason it was considered inferior was because the kings did not have the power and authority of Nebuchadnezzar. It was a larger kingdom, but the kings did not have absolute authority. Remember when Daniel was thrown into the lion's den? The king did not have authority to get him out. Now the third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth, was the Grecian Empire with Alexander the Great. Did he rule over all the earth? No, he didn't. He had a much larger empire, but far from ruling the world. But you're going to notice one thing. All these empires include the territory of Israel. Now, when God said the Antichrist or the beast was going to make everyone take a mark and that all would worship him, God already told us in the same chapter that the beast had 10 horns. Then in chapter 17 of Revelation, God explains what the horns mean. Revelation 17, starting in verse 12. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. The 10 kings have received no kingdom as yet, because in John's time they didn't exist. But they will receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. 1 hour just means a span of time. Now, you are to link this passage with Daniel's vision, because he also saw a beast with 10 horns. It's the same end-time empire, the kingdom of the Antichrist. Daniel 7, verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there, in this horn, were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. So this end-time empire will consist of 10 kings. When the Antichrist begins to rise, he'll uproot 3 of the kings. So if you see a coalition or a federation of 10 kings or 10 rulers, it's probably safe to say 10 countries. And 3 of the kings are uprooted and overtaken by some man. Then you immediately know who the Antichrist is. And the 7 kings who are left will give their power and authority to him. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. Another thing to note is that all these empires involve modern-day Turkey. The Roman Empire may have had its capital in Rome for about 300 years, but it also had its capital in Constantinople for over 1,000 years. Constantinople is modern-day Istanbul in Turkey. Now let's examine the last pieces of this prophecy. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. Daniel 2, verse 31. You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. Then he sees a stone smash the image on its feet, and the whole thing gets broken down and carried away. After that, the stone becomes a great mountain and fills the earth. Now Daniel interprets. Daniel 2, verse 36. This is the dream. Now we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom, inferior to yours. That was the Medo-Persian Empire that conquered Babylon. Then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. That was the Grecian Empire, led by Alexander the Great. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. That kingdom will break in pieces. Interesting is that the Roman Empire was never conquered. It basically disintegrated. It broke into pieces. This next section is interesting because it doesn't say it's a fifth kingdom. It just becomes a kingdom of iron and clay mixed together. Verse 41, whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. So I think it's very possible that some European nations are going to mix with some Middle Eastern nations. Everyone knows Islam does not mix well with European nations. Of course, Turkey must be involved. If you didn't know, Turkey is a secular country, but the population is Muslim. So 10 nations will unite. It'll have the strength of the iron or the strength of the Roman Empire. But iron doesn't mix with clay, so it'll be partly weak. Islamic law does not mix with European laws and customs. But there will be some type of union. The Antichrist will probably uproot 3 Islamic leaders and become the Mahdi for the Muslims, while being the head of this 10-nation federation. So it could be safe to say it's some sort of revived Roman Empire, but not in its entirety because it's mixed with clay. There could be new players in this new kingdom. I will add, there is a bit of mystery to verse 43. I'm not sure what could be meant with they mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. Does that mean iron is the seed of men and clay isn't? I'll have to put that on the shelf for now. Verse 44, and in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. So now you know the kingdom of the Antichrist, and he does not rule the world. He rules a part of it, and likely only over 10 nations. There are 193 countries on earth, and ruling over 10 is far from being ruler over all. And until next time, let us continue to love the Lord with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. Oh, I love you, Jesus. Amen. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.